Level 3, 5. Level 3, 6. Level 3, 7. Start level 4, 1. Level 4, 2. Level 4, 3. Level 4, 4. Level 4, 5. Level 4, 6. Level 4, 7. Start level 5, 1. Level 5, 2. Level 5, 3. Level 5, 4. Level 5, 5. Level 5, 6. Level 5, 7. Start level 6, 1. Level 6, 2. Level 6, 3. Level 6, 4. Level 6, 5. Level 6, 6. Level 6, 7. Start level 7, 1. Level 7, 2. Level 7, 3. Level 7, 4. Level 7, 5. Level 7, 6. Level 7, 7.
Marissa Wong, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. I would love to talk to you about departure.
I have had time since the Made in BC residency. We also did some research in Banff and had that time in December to develop a lot of those concepts. And then I was gearing up for this show in May, which we were going to have rehearsals prior to this before quarantine happened, to really solidify what we were working with at the time. And I say we as in myself and my rehearsal director is Haley Gothrope, and also a very dear friend of mine. They're awesome and they've helped me so greatly through this process, emotionally and in studio. But originally I was working with this idea of trauma and using my own personal trauma as a way to tell the story. And I was doing a lot of research on trauma and how that sits in the body and how that can come into play into the way that we observe our lives now. And specifically it was a sexually traumatic event, so it became really heavily based off of that. And I wanted to find a way to make it more accessible so that it wasn't just my storytelling, but how can that also captivate and relate to an audience member who may not have had those experiences, or finding a way to make that touch on different people at different places and moments in their lives. And how can it be a piece that also continues to live on for me, not just based off of this one experience or this one time period that I've had in my life, so that it can continue to unfold and unfurl. So in the video that you watched, it is a part of the piece and it is a score, but it's a score that can continue to move forward and progress. And you can see in the score that some of those tasks are really physically challenging and some of them are a little bit more conceptually. And as those physical challenges, as my body becomes used to it, I become a little bit stronger and better. And so I have to continually find ways to challenge myself and to make it more difficult for myself. So I make the time longer, or I'll make it shorter, or and so that's just one part of the piece. And in a way, what that does is it helps me relate not just to my own experiences, but how we relate to experiences and trauma and events in our lives as a whole. So how things keep coming back into our lives and potentially unexpectedly. You know, I'm working through these tasks and I go, okay, it's done. And then it suddenly comes back again and again. And so how life moves in a little bit more of a flow and not in a linear fashion, is working as how the score comes back into play, as well as some of the other material that I was using.
So the non-linearity of it is also about the kind of iteration,
Mm-hmm.
and the levels going back to the first gesture speaks very much to that idea of replaying, or
Mm-hmm.
like playing something over again
Yeah.
in slightly different circumstances that sometimes take you forward in life, you know, through you know, our wisdom and learning certain things and learning how to do it, and then other times take you a couple of steps back,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is also nice in relation to the Two Big Steps Collective. This idea of those two big steps could be forward or backwards, or could keep you exactly where you are, stuck in you know, are they important aspects for you, this idea of control, focus, and meditation? Have I got that wrong? Are they not wrong? You know, like, is
No,
my
it's actually, it's
interpretation?
pretty spot on. Yeah, I think for myself in my life, I try to have a lot of control. And this is actually really relevant in this score in particular, but also this piece, is this idea that I can control my life into what I want it to be. So taking a situation and making sure that everything's in these neat little boxes, to then therefore not have any variables that could potentially go wrong. I think a lot of us trying to hold on and grasp onto that. And um and meditating through that, so then taking a step back and breathing and pausing and going, okay, well, what am I really working with here? What am I actually feeling? That's not just a concept, but a real life, you know, experience of what's going on, or how do I feel the clothing on my skin right now, right here. And how does that relate to how I approach my daily experience? I think a lot of times as dancers, we're having to propel and having to know our work and having to talk about it and come across with a lot of confidence all the time. And I think a lot of uncertainty, especially when we're entering this situation right now, this kind of global pause, it's forcing us all to really have to step back and take a breath and take a moment to um, really observe what we're doing right now, right in this very moment, and only think in that way. And it's really interesting because it's brought up a lot of different ways of how I approach my daily routine, how I approach work and what that means to me, how what fears and anxieties come up in terms of uncertainty, and trying to capture that in a piece of work, or at least in this first phrase work or this score, is something that I'm trying to do with this whole range of, okay, there's some really beautiful moments that are super enjoyable or pleasurable to me, but then there's some things that are really difficult that I'm trying to control, and maybe just letting go of that control would actually allow it to unfurl. You know, maybe if I actually let go of doing, you know, a pirouette and not allowing it to just be so bound, I may be able to do more, or I may be able to find more control in it by just actually releasing it. I think that's one of those ideas that we hold on so tightly. We go, okay, I'm not going to let go. I'm not going to let go. But actually, if you soften that grip, it could potentially allow you to move into a space that is not that fear-based place. So part of the work is how these experiences sit in our bodies, and how, you know, me growing up with the training that I've had has informed what I'm doing currently. And I've had a really strong ballet background. So how does that come into work or how does that come into play in my work? And how does, you know, me stepping on rocks, or, you know, just having the opportunity to walk on beaches or to rock climb, or do these different motions, how does that come into play and inform who I am right now? And so I'm taking a lot of these experiences that I've had in the past, as movement experiences, but also experiences that have been held in my body. And as I meditate, as I work through this this transformative kind of process, I'm also uncovering, oh, I totally remember falling down and falling off my bike at a certain age, and how does that inform now the way that I like move into the floor. So I'm looking at a lot of other body patterning, and ballet is one of those ones because it's been such a strong part of my training. But having that also not define me in this current moment, as well. And seeing how that all kind of comes into this whole process.
How much permission would you give yourself to
Yeah.
improvise in the performance of the work in future? I think that's my question.
I think that improvisation in terms of this piece and this score is very useful or helpful in terms of what I'm looking towards creating. Because it speaks to the now, it speaks to the moment, rather than having it be this clean choreographed aspect. I think it's still going to be structured like how I was doing the piece prior, and still having these scores within a frame, because I think that is structure in life. You wake up and you have to go to a job from 9 to 5, or it looks like a different structure. We're working within these structures, but the day-to-day is still within that flow. So I think it will be presented a little bit more surrounding that, rather than having it be this presented aspect. I think one thing that you talked about already too was having that playfulness, or having this ability to really interact with the audience and really make it accessible. And I think every time I'm showing up, every performance or every rehearsal, I'm showing them up with what I have. And especially during this quarantine, I'm waking up from a day to day just observing how am I today. And my roommate and I were just talking about how some days we just feel so manic because we have no idea what version we're going to get. And I think playing into that and playing into all of those sides encompasses a little bit more of a personal and / like human experience that we're all having, rather than it being this kind of perfected box of presenting a piece or presenting what I have to offer as a human, exploring that range. The piece was supposed to premiere May 22nd and 23rd, presented through Two Big Steps with partnership from the Dance Center, and Katie Cassidy was also going to be showing new work during that time as well. But yeah, we have new dates, and it will be be presented at the end of May, and we have a whole nother year to explore what those things mean and what's coming up for us during quarantine, and how those ideas come about. I think it's really an awesome time to reflect on how we're relating to trauma, how we're relating to our daily experiences, which is very relevant to what I was exploring prior to this. And yeah, emotions are coming up, or and not having that structure is actually bringing up a lot of ideas. And we tend to go, okay, I'm over, I'm done that, I've worked through it, and then it comes back and hits you in the face, and you go, oh, I am totally not healed from that thing that happened years ago. And I think that these ideas, we want to kind of work through it and get over it and then put it aside. And I don't think that happens when we're working, especially when we're talking about body memory. Things come up, or you get a massage in a certain area and you just end up bawling your eyes out, and you go, where did that come from? And I think that's really helpful to just know that, and you talked about this already too, but it forever changing, it forever being this process of ebb and flow, I find, of things coming and going, and just observing what happens when they do come up, or how you relate to these experiences, positive or negative, or however you relate to them.
So thank you so much, Marissa. That was really lovely to talk with you.
Thank you.